Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. I don't know if this is going to end up being part of another video, in which case I'll edit out the welcome back to the channel part, but I got to take this apart. I got to fix this, and I got to put an ignition switch in it, so I figured I may as well film that, so in case someone else has to do this, you know what comes out. All we've done so far is the steering wheel was only loosely installed. It's got a wavy washer, and it's got a giant nut, and the nut was loose. Another reason to check your previous owner's work. This thing banging around is no good. I also have an ignition switch here that when I turn it on, sometimes I have to hold it into the start position, and it takes a few seconds before it starts to start. So I want to change that. The switch in the back, they're plastic, they go bad. They're like $8. I have one on the way. But in the meantime, I'm going to take out this is the switch for the wipers. This is the blinker. This little dude right here, watch him pop in and out. That is the cancel. So when you put it on, when the steering wheel comes by, it pushes that, and then it cancels the whole thing as it moves. So important that that works. I'm seeing a piece, like you see this here. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's not in here, but it's in there. So this has got some missing pieces or some breakage that we got to get at anyway. Plus this all needs to be greased. This is the horn contactor that needs to be adjusted. So I'm going to take all this out. There's a wire harness under here that's a series of flat bladed sort of wires. I just took this one off. They can only go on one way. So if you just reach up underneath here, you'll feel them, the ones that go to this switch. And then it's these 4 flathead screws, this being the last one, because I didn't think you'd want to watch me unscrew all 4 of them, especially since I'm holding the camera. And that ought to loosen this whole thing up. And I'm taking this out for the reasons I just mentioned, where I want to grease it and clean it and make sure that it stays good. But I've also want to fix this, and I got to see, do I just need the anti-rattle sleeve, or do I need the whole bearing cup, the whole bearing assembly? Okay, the piece that I was worried about just hit my foot. This is your assembly. These wires down here, try not to bend this contraption up. I've seen these where this is all broken and it's very hard to get the wires back on when that happens. So, you know, have a care. In here, the bearing actually looks okay. I think it's the anti-rattle sleeve that's just left the chat. So we're gonna want to get a plastic anti-rattle sleeve to go back in there. That ought to give us better access or better centering of this and stop it from banging around. And then up under here in the back is our ignition switch. That's this plug, only goes on one way. We've now essentially liberated the entire column of all of its switches. Don't know what this little guy here is for, but it looks like he's stealing ground for something. But yeah, like this switch is just, there's something wrong with the plastic part in the back. I don't know what. So we're going to find out. We'll find out together as we disassemble this thing. I think I'm going to have to drop the column a bit to get all this stuff that I want to get out, but I'm not positive yet. I am going to take the key out and put it over here. I am going to watch that fall and knock my screws everywhere. This thing in here should just unclick, if memory serves. Come on, unclick. Making a liar out of me. Unclick. There we go. So that comes off, goes in the pile. This is your lock mechanism for the steering column lock. Honestly, all that stuff appears to be missing to me. I don't know if I feel like there's more to that steering column lock when it's in place and working. I don't even see the stuff on this column for that. I'm admittedly not as experienced with the Superbeetle Beetles, but this, I don't know. I feel like there's some stuff maybe missing here, because that doesn't even go through to grab anything in there. And turning the key does nothing to move it. There's like a pin here. I don't know. Anyway, I think I gotta drop this column out. There's just 2 nuts underneath here, and just to drop the column down a little bit so I can get to the switch in the back, and then we can take it out. So hold on one moment. Alrighty, quick update. I got parts. I've been waiting on a bunch of parts. I needed the bearing for this, an ignition switch. I needed all kinds of stuff while I had this sort of apart already. So someone, you know, you got this wood trim, right? Somebody decided that they were going to cut gauge holes in, this is the factory trim piece, you know, and the gauges didn't work. So I got to re-put this back on. I just blocked the holes off with some black plastic discs. This piece isn't crazy money. You can get this on eBay, but it's like 75 bucks, and the wood's already in here. It kind of fits the theme of this vehicle. So I'm gonna put that back on. Something I've been doing while I had it apart and I haven't been filming is there is so much extraneous wire in here. I don't know what was what. Like, I know these wiring harnesses pretty good. This pile down here of wire has all been removed. 90% of that, I'm not sure what it did. Like, there's a kill switch or something in here that's like glued into the glove box. I didn't take out in case somebody wanted to make it a kill switch again. But all this extra wire, and it all runs back to the nightmare that's back here with these relays and all this other junk. I'll be pulling all of that out. I had to get it out of the dash first. This big trunk of wire here that looks like rope, it's actually a bundle of wire. I think the only wires in that worth keeping are these speaker wires, because, you know, it does have a working radio and there are speakers already in the back. So we'll probably hook those back up just so it works. I've had to take a lot apart to fix all this stuff. Like, I had to pull the speedometer out to get to the back of this stuff. But we're at the point where I have all the pieces to try to start putting it all back together again. You know, in step one, the reason I went down this whole journey, one, to remove the wires, but there was two things wrong. On our test drive, which in the last video, I believe it's the last video I've had out, it is the how to align the front end, because I took it for a ride and obviously the front end was really bad, but this was banging around in here, and a lot of people think that's the bushing or the bearing that's gone bad. This is the bearing. This sits in this column here, which sits in here like that, but there's a plastic bush that goes around this column that actually rides in the middle of this bearing. It's just not here. It's missing. So that's why the steering was banging around, the steering wheel, so much. But while I was in here, the second main reason to take this apart, this ignition switch is bad. I have to hold it over in the start position to get it to trigger a start. Getting at all this to fix the bearing, it's only a few extra steps to get in here and pull this switch. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to get this wood panel back on, and then we're going to change out the ignition switch, put this back in, and get the bushing in place so that we can have, you know, steering and whatnot. So let me get set up to change out the switch, and we'll put this back on. Alright, put this back on. For the previous owner, had installed it with these gauges kind of clamping it from the back. I just put a nice little Phillips head here to a washer with a lock nut in the back. That way this can be removed if you have to, like, take it off to do switches or whatever. It's not such a burden to get at, and you can get to that nut from underneath. So next up, I just popped this back on for a second. So back of the Speedo, the hardest part here is the speedometer cable. This goes to that EGR timer box up under the hood. You have to disconnect that so you can get enough slack to pull this forward, and then putting it back in is an exercise in fun and excitement with this. Now, I could have sworn these were one piece, but thinking about it, you'd have to take all the wires off to put this on if that were the case. So it's two piece. It is not one continuous loop, which is fine. But this is basically what seals the gauge in. It's what holds it. It's just an interference fit. There's no, like, bolts or anything. So I just popped back in for a second to tell you guys that I am going to probably need both hands to fiddle this in. I don't know if it's watch worthy or not. I mean, I don't know. I guess you guys could tell me. I don't think it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put this so that I can get to the seam this way, and I could put a piece of tape on this. I mean, I may end up having to put a piece of tape on this or something to hold it, but it's just going to be holding this in and then reinserting this. Tip and trick, make sure it's level or straight this way. You don't want to have to take this back out because you're looking at a crooked Speedo. So yeah, let me fight with this, and then I'll bring you guys back and show you. All right, I got it started. Looks pretty straight to me. We're essentially lining up VDO with the center there because I feel like that's good feng shui, and then 55 straight up. And then this is just a question of wiggling it until it is reseated the way you like. You know, everybody's got a different way they like to do this, but you're basically just pushing this in past the gasket surface so that you get a good seal and this doesn't vibrate out on you. So I'm going to get set up to do the ignition switch because we got to put the column back in and rehook this stuff back up to some of it. This down here, the wires I took off, I don't remember if I filmed this or not. You got the ignition switch, and then you have the wipers, and then you have blinkers. Pretty sure I have that right. I'm not sure which of these is which, but anyway, these actually go on the stock flap that goes down for the blinker assembly. I'll show you that. But yeah, let me get set up. I'll be right back. Alrighty, so this is basically your steering bushing, ignition lock, column lock, device thing, apparatus. Couple things to note. There's a safety screw in here. It actually goes in behind this tab. Most people, by the time you get a hold of a Beetle, will have drilled this out and put like a captured, like a cap nut in it, as someone has done for me, where it just becomes an easy to remove hex head or Allen key. The ignition switch can come out. There's a hole here that you actually can, I had to drill this hole, but you can put this in to pull this tumbler out. But pulling the tumbler out on this version of the column, this is the late column, doesn't relieve you of the switch. To get to the switch, you have to take this off. You have to get it from the back. And I mean, there will be people that will say you can get it from underneath here. You can get the switch out. Maybe you can. I've never tried. It looks really terrible to me. Based on this angle, I don't think it's possible, honestly. Like this, if you look at the angle I have to go in at, I cross the plane of the steering shaft. So short of taking this out, I don't know how you would get to this screw. But I've seen people on the internet say you can. I'm not going to call anybody a liar. But if anybody has an idea how you would do that with this on the shaft, absolutely let me know. I'd love to learn. So that comes out, and then that should release us of our switch. Now this switch, I cannot tell branding. I feel like if it was a Volkswagen switch, it would say it. If you look inside here in the plastic, it's pretty gross in there. What often happens with these is you arc out the ignition circuit, you know, the coil wire touches something, whatever, and it burns the heck out of these switches, and then you get problems. This one does work, but it doesn't work good. Well, it doesn't work reliably. Like, I open up the, when I go to ignition, you know, start, it takes anywhere between 1 and 5 seconds for it to actually start. So I'm sitting there holding it, and I just know one of these times it will not start. So to not do that to me or the next person, we are going to install another switch. Now, I'm looking at this. Yeah, I'm like, uh-oh, maybe it's not the right one. You just got to get the pin lined up like that, and then the fun screw goes back in. It's got a little lock washer on it, and it's not very magnetic, memory serves, so getting this back in like this may end up playing a go find it, but let's try. And there we go. Okay, so that's ostensibly all you need to do to change out your ignition switch. Now, if you had to replace this tumbler, you're in for more work to get this out. I drilled this hole. That's just a push pin in there you can use. Let's just make sure that this works before we put it all back together. Okay, I got dash lights. It was not in neutral. That is significantly better than before. Okay, so feeling good. That's definitely solved that problem. Now all we have to do is reinsert, and I didn't have, this plastic didn't have to come off to do this, but I wanted to take a chance to clean it. And it really just kind of goes back in like it came out. It's kind of hard to mess up. It just sort of sits in here like this. It doesn't really lock or do anything magical. I am going to put this back on. Am I? Yeah, I think I am going to try to put that back on before I slide this thing completely home on the shaft. Just think it'll be easier for me that way because I have better access to it. I'm just going to pause this so I can lean underneath and plug that in real quick. All right, got the ignition switch back in. Seems to work. And then this guy just has to get seated back where it was, which I can see a line up here. But really all I'm doing is I'm getting it in so that when that screw comes up, you see that clamping system back there? Maybe I can put some more light on it. You see that clamp back there on that metal tab that I was pointing out earlier? I don't know if I can hold the light and point at all the things for you guys. Let's see. So essentially, what we're doing is this piece of metal is part of the column, and then there's a pinch joint that screw I told you about goes into. This has to be just past that so you can put the screw in. Pretty straightforward operation, nothing real tricky about it. And then we drop the screw back in. I feel like it might be mostly there, honestly. Yeah. So then I just have to try to reinstall the screw from underneath. There is a convenient hole for the screw. And yeah, it's just past it. It's going in, no problem. So then we are going to tighten that back up, which will lock this column assembly back into place. Ooh. All right. Again, don't kill that with tightness. You'll hate yourself if you have to take it back apart. So this was the steering wheel swap that I was talking about. I have a bushing that I have two versions of it actually, because I wasn't sure if it was like the MK1 Rabbit style bushing that also works on a very late model of these, or if it was the standard Superbeetle one. I have both. Let me go grab them and I will show you guys how to make this look and feel a whole lot better. Alright, so I'm glad that I got both. This guy here with these little rings on it, I guess we'll call them, this is the one that's for the MK1 Rabbit, and it also says late Superbeetle. This one here from our friends at J-Bugs also says that it fits Superbeetles up through 78. And he does fit on tight like it's supposed to, and I should be able to get this to seat in this bush, this bearing here. I don't know how easy or hard this is going to be while I'm holding on to you guys too, but essentially you don't want to force it, but it will eventually go in. These are always a fight, but I don't know if you can tell, like this now no longer has any real movement to it. So I'm just going to pause it so I can push this down without holding the camera. All right, bushing pushed on. Next up, this stuff being the blinker wiper assembly. You want to put a little grease on the top of these. Don't get too much grease under it because that's where the contacts are for the actual blinker. And this guy here is the copper rub area for the horn. Clean this up. If it's dirty and the corresponding ring on the bottom of the steering wheel is dirty, you either won't have a horn or you'll only have a horn in certain positions of the wheel. Sometimes this clamp needs to be loosened and this column shifted up and down to get good tension on these. I've had to do that. This is really tight in here. I'm not going to even be able to if I wanted to do that. And I don't. It's fine. But just FYI. And then this is all the wires, and they slide down this channel here and go down back into the bowels with which they came. Before I do that, I need to put on this little trim cover for this, and that will have us pretty much ready to go to put the 4 screws in and pick it up from there. So let me get this all installed. Well, it's kind of reinstalling itself here a little bit. Maybe I can just do it while we're all on. You know what, I want to clean this thing a little bit. Yeah, let me clean this up. I'll get this slid in and then I'll come back. Okay, this is installed. All I did was put the 4 screws in. No big deal. I also put the collar. There's a collar here that goes and pushes against that plastic bearing we installed when the steering wheel comes down on it to help hold it in. All that's really left is to install, well, I guess we could, I did put the wires back on under here. They connect to the wipers and the blinker, so I didn't test it yet. Wires are in, feel them on there. So let's try blinker. We appear to be working, and you'll notice a little tab that comes out there. Right here, it kind of pops out. That's the cancel tab for when the wheel comes around. And then wipers, low, high, and park. Okay, everything works. So all that's left now is to install the steering wheel. if you guys watched the alignment video, which should have been posted before this one, you will see that this wheel is not, it's not keyed, it's splined. So you can put the wheel on any way you want. I've got the wheels pointed straight right now. I'm putting the wheel on straight. It's way easier than trying to fiddle with the adjustment on the front, like I told you guys in the video on the alignment. Only one tie rod's adjustable on this, the passenger side one. So when you're doing the alignment, it's very hard to leverage like a pitman adjustment or something to get the wheel straight. It's easier just to pull the wheel. So that's on. I'm going to install the wavy washer and the nut and tighten them up, and then install the horn. The horn is just this, the wire that you see here goes to the middle in here, and then this goes on sideways because this thing and then twists and locks in, and then we push it on. So let me push all this stuff on, put it all down, and then we will check and see if our steering wheel play is gone. And then you just got to get the springs lined back up, and then it just pushes on, kind of clicks in. You guys would hear that. That's it. So now let's see if we have horn, and we do. Okay. So, in theory, we're done. We can get this thing out on the road for the final video. I was going to wrap this video here, but this thing down here, guys, like I've said it in a couple of videos, this roller skate gas pedal, it has to go. I mean, it's the actual gas pedal is got a little arc on the bottom so that you can roll into it and it pushes it forward. That thing, when you step on it, you're as likely to step down and go nowhere, and then getting your foot under it to push it forward, you push it too far, and this is a stick, and anyone who knows how to drive a stick, you know that sucks. And really, why the hell is there a stupid skateboard wheel there anyway? Like up here, this version of it, oh, it's kind of neat. Maybe I could see that up here. I don't know. Whatever, for the shift rod. Down there, it's getting out of here. And I have a new gas pedal kit. I'm going to do that, and then we'll wrap this video up. So stay tuned for some gas pedal stuff. I forgot the best part. Stay tuned for some gas pedal stuff, but if you guys watched that other video, you saw the reason we did all this was the steering bearing. This thing doesn't move up and down anymore. I mean, it's got a little bit of play, like a normal steering wheel on an older car would, but it's not hopping all over the place. That is definitely... All right. Let's do the last part of this and finally deal with the this vile gas pedal situation. You guys have heard me complain about this thing forever at this point. Skateboard wheel is a gas pedal. The problem with this is when you push on it, it wants to push down this way, which is not the direction that the gas pedal needs to go. It needs to go that way. So it looks like the arm is still here. I think they can just reuse the arm. I don't know how much they modified it to fit this stupid thing. I got a circlip there we have to try to bang off. It is not really used in the actual version of this, so we're just going to pull it off like that. There's a little stupid circlip, and then we're going to pull this wheel off, and we are left with, it looks like a pin, which I think is going to be the same pin the roller goes on. So let me get the new parts laid out, and I'll show you guys how this goes together. Alright, here's what comes in the bag for a kit. You got the actual gas pedal, really important piece being this ramp, which is what allows you to push down on the pedal and have it go forward instead of just sideways. This is the circlip we took off. I thought it was different, but it's the same as the one in the kit. This is the pin that the gas pedal pivots on. Down there you will see the area right here that pivot pin goes. And this is the roller that rides on this. So I am literally, I guess let me take out this dude's super impressive floor mats that he's made. I actually don't hate them nearly as much as I did when I got this car. They're starting to grow on me a little bit. Beats carpet with a convertible. Anyway, where's that light? I just dropped it under the seat. Where did it go? Wow, it really rolled away from me. Alright, so here's what we're working with. I am going to install the pin here to get the gas pedal on. There is a spring that is here to help kick the gas pedal back up. So that has to get installed. It goes basically, the pin goes through it, rides in this little depressed section right there. So let me get it installed and I will show you guys what that looks like. Alright, I saved you the grinding. So I had to raise this a little bit here, this edge on both sides. that it wouldn't drop down quite far enough. And the other thing you need to make sure you get right is back here, you want that ramp riding in the middle of the roller. That required me to twist the pedal and bend it a little bit. But as you can see, now we have a big boy gas pedal, which I can't tell you, superior in every way. I still got to manage the spring in there to get this thing to, you know, stay where it belongs. What you're trying to avoid is this. You don't want it coming back here and doing that. The spring needs to help it stay. So I got to get the spring bent up, and then I will show you guys, I guess, finished product, which is really just installing this guy, which is the flap. So one moment. All right, spring's hooked up. There's a picture of the orientation for anybody who needs to see it. The long arms grab back here, the short tab lays there, and it just gives it this, so that the gas pedal always comes back to rest on where it belongs. And as you can see, that's all good. So all that's left is the installation of this fancy cover. Don't know how I'm going to do that with one hand. So pretend that's fully installed. Ta-da! There you go. All right, so that kind of wraps up some of the other projects on this thing that we've done. You know, I got a bunch of other little small stuff I need to be doing, and a couple of big things in terms of the rocker reinforcement and the convertible top. But I'm gonna put some carpets in here, kind of clean the inside up, get the wire cover and the radio installed. But I just kind of wanted to do the whole like steering wheel gas pedal thing while I had you guys, you know, watching a video. Kids figure it's enough content. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, if it's not something that people want to see working on a Beetle like this, if this is something that it's like, I don't have a Beetle, so this stuff's not interesting, let me know. If you're just into it for the Beetle content itself and that's why you're here, let me know that too. A lot of different ways I could kind of run this in terms of what I show and what I work on. I have a whole tractor project I'm working on the channel still. I don't know if people want to see me, you know, convert the parts tractor to the good tractor and set up the excavator and the bucket and everything that I have for it that came on the old one. So, I mean, anybody who's watching the channel knows what I'm talking about. Anyone who doesn't, I would encourage you to go check that out. But yeah, I kind of like to know what you guys like to see, because I'm working on this stuff anyway. Like, this is the stuff I do as a hobby. I like working on cars. I like learning from other people who have done this stuff before me. So I kind of like to put this stuff out in the universe of, hey, here's how I'm fixing these things. So let me know what you think. As always, if you could subscribe, that would be great. And I will check back with you guys next time.